I'm Sarah Davis, and you're watching Fight News Now Extra. Coming up next, we're bringing you the details on the latest changes to UFC 153, and while one fighter retires, another returns to the UFC. And we'll also hear what our MMA panel has to say about all of it, so let's get started. After Quinton Rampage Jackson and Jose Aldo both pulled out of UFC Rio with injuries on Tuesday, the card is back on track. Anderson Silva has stepped up to the 205 division and will fight Stephan Bonnar in a 3-round main event. In the co-main, light heavyweight Glover Teixeira, who was supposed to face Rampage, will now take on fellow Brazilian Fabio Maldonado. Maldonado openly campaigned for this fight over Twitter, and it looks like it worked. A look at Bellator. Their heavyweight champion, Cole Conrad, has announced his retirement from MMA, and it's been reported that he's departing to become a financial trader at a Minnesota-based firm. A plan for a new Bellator heavyweight champ has not been released. Chris Leben is making his return to the UFC after a year-long suspension for a failed drug test when he fought Mark Munoz at UFC 138. Leben will now throw down with Carlos Vimola at UFC 155 on December 29th. For more on all these newsmakers, let's hear from John Pollock, John Ramdeen, Robin Black. Guys, the Rio card, is it better or worse now with all the changes?
Well, I think it can certainly be debated. I mean, no one was kidding themselves that Jose Aldo and Frankie Edgar was going to do a million buys here for this card. That being said, what we are now faced with is a main event of Anderson Silva coming up to 205 to take on Stephan Bonnar. I am not a fan of this, but this was clearly their last resort, and there was no way they were canceling another card.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Was it their last resort?
Stephan Bonnar, I think that's your last resort.
I like this fight. I don't know about you guys.
Why?
I think it's a lot of fun. I think you get, if your worst case scenario is you get to see Anderson Silva unleash an unbelievable knockout on a guy, that's your worst case scenario in this fight, then you're doing pretty good. Because you can also, I mean, it's a competitive fight.
Is it? No, I don't. That's the whole thing. When you look at the fight with Jose Aldo and Frankie Edgar, I think everybody agreed that that fight was a competitive fight. Frankie Edgar, in every single one of his outings, comes forward, tries to end the fight. This fight was Stephan Bonnar, who lost to Forrest Griffin, who got his ass handed to him by Anderson Silva. How is it going to be any different?
I feel like we're a broken record. We come in here almost every day and we talk about you have so many cards but only so many stars to sell these cards with, and it feels that we're now getting this habit from Jones and Vitor over to this one where we're trying to justify the UFC making these fights, and we're trying to sell people on these fights. I can't tell someone to spend $55 on Stephan Bonnar fighting Anderson Silva. If Stephan Bonnar wins this fight, where do we go here? Is Stephan going to cut down to 185?
Well, it depends really how you find entertainment. Personally, I like seeing two high-level professional athletes fight. I also love the storyline. What if 1 in 100 chance Stephan Bonnar wins this fight? And what if 1 in
I'm already paying $55 for this same story in Toronto.
What if 1 in 42 chance Vitor Belfort wins his fight? Then they fight 2 fights from now. Stephan Bonnar is the light heavyweight champion of the world. How do you like that, Colin?
John, Anderson gains nothing from winning this. Great, we get to see Anderson Silva fight, but we've all seen in the past, Anderson draws when he has the right opponent with him. He has stunk out pay-per-view when he has the wrong opponent. I don't think there's enough people that are spending money. Maybe they'll go to a bar to watch this, but they are not paying to watch this main event.
That's true, and what is fortunate about what the UFC recently announced is it's not just Anderson Silva that they've added to this card. Of course, the main event is Anderson Silva and Stephan Bonnar, but they've also added Minotauro Nogueira versus Dave Herman, which is going to be an entertaining fight. The look on your face is just, it doesn't make any sense. You're not excited about that fight? What about Maldonado and Teixeira? That's not exciting to you?
Guys, we're talking about pay-per-view here, okay?
I'm not talking about pay-per-views.
I am.
I could care less how many pay-per-views they sell. I could care less who's up next for a thing. I want to see guys have exciting, competitive fights. I want to see world-class athletes go at it in the middle of the cage. I could care less if it sells 1 pay-per-view, and that's me.
Okay, well, I'm thinking of a big picture here. This is a business at the end of the day, and that's what we're paid to analyze here. The fact that I'm not disputing here of whether Dave Herman and Antonio Rodrigo Nogueira are going to have a great fight. I don't even know why you guys suggest you're excited about Dave Herman here having a fight with Nogueira.
I am. It's going to be exciting. You don't think that's going to be an interesting fight? A guy that says Jiu-jitsu does not work against the best jiu-jitsu guy or one of the best jiu-jitsu guys in the heavyweight division. That
sold
doesn't
me.
excite you?
I'm sold.
All
Great.
right.
And you're talking about competitive fight too with Stephan Bonnar. So you will be paying for this?
Let's totally be paying for it. Of course, Fight Network pays for my for my subscriptions. But listen, Stephan Bonnar in his last couple outings showed a really strong top game.
Against Kyle Kingsbury?
Kyle Kingsbury, very talented
I
wrestler.
often mistake Anderson Silva for
He's
Kyle
a
Kingsbury.
much bigger man than Anderson Silva. He's very strong. He's hungry. He's an original, important fighter. He's got a great top game. He's got a good jiu-jitsu game. He's got a clear-cut strategy. Put Anderson Silva on his back and try to win
and
that.
ride it out.
This is the opportunity of a
Okay.
lifetime for him.
You're a matchmaker, and Joe Silva, he's before discussed when you put a fight together that you can go in many directions based on whoever wins here. Stephan Bonnar wins this fight, and what? What is the upside here?
I could care less. This fight is not about who's going to go where or how he ranks in the rankings. Sometimes it's just awesome to see two great athletes fight, and I'm cool with it. I have no problem. I could care less where he goes.
You last week raved and said about 5,000 times here, Anderson Silva and George St. Pierre, who cares? Who cares? It's the biggest fight. Stephan Bonnar wins this fight, guess what? A lot of sizzle is gone.
No, not necessarily. You do have a storyline. You force Stephan Bonnar to go down to 185 pounds and challenge
Stephan Bonnar is not making 185
and listen, he can with the right people around him. You can make 185 pounds. Kenny Florian fought at 185
pounds. This guy was a tweet away from retiring a month ago.
Well, only because he wanted big fights. It doesn't get bigger than Anderson Silva.
I want you guys to fight, and I'll put money on that one.
Well, Robin will buy anything, so I'm sure we could headline a pay-per-view in Brazil, and we would get one buy out of Robin Black, which he would then expense to Chad Midgley at the end of the day.
That's true, I would.
I'm not sold on this as a pay-per-view. Listen, we have all these cards. We don't have enough stars to facilitate all these pay-per-views. Put this on free television. That's great. I enjoyed Anderson Silva and James Irvin in 2008 on free television, but I'm not paying $55 here to see Stephan Bonnar go for what I think is a 1 in 1,000 chance here of defeating Anderson Silva, and I am questioning that one.
Every single fight between elite athletes is a contest. I mean, you don't want to see the greatest football team ever play another really good football team. I mean, it's an opportunity to see one of the great fighters ever perform.
Just saying,
when
we're getting into a pattern now where we are paying for the worst case scenario. This is all we've got, folks. This is the best we could do. Please accept this as a main event. And I'm sorry, but if we just digest all of this, then what's to stop the UFC from just make everything a pay-per-view?
The problem is it's the mentality that the casual fans have. It's not about the main event. Mixed martial arts has been based on the entire card. You have a night of solid action, and that's what they're hoping for you. Again, you have Minotauro on the card, you have Teixeira, and you have Anderson Silva in the main event.
Also, at the same time, if people don't buy it, they'll stop doing it. If people like me keep buying it, good times.
They're not stopping.
Thanks, guys. And don't forget, we have live fights this weekend. BAMA 10 from London, England starts at 4 p.m. Eastern, so make sure you tune in for that. While you're at it, check us out online at fightnetwork.com, where you can join our fantasy pool and win all sorts of prizes from Everlast. Coming up next, we have more Fight News Now Extra.